honesty. Can you say honesty? Honesty.
Good. Yeah. Started out by welcoming everyone. And want to tell you thanks for watching and or listening to the program. And I urge you to encourage or remind those who cannot watch the program today to watch it on my YouTube channel. And also to like, share, and subscribe. I don't like, the advertisement bit, like, share, and subscribe. But radio station regulations, and I'm sure you understand. Today I have two guests. They both share the same surname, Hylton, but I don't believe they're related. We'll find out today. And they have a bunch of things in common. As usual, you can call in and chat with me, 667-369-8569. 667-369-8569. And I'll repeat the number throughout the broadcast. Or you can join me in the chat room. And we can talk about a whole bunch of stuff. I usually set aside 2 periods for people to call in. One is at 4:30. We just call it New York time. That's 3:30 Jamaica time and 9:30 UK time. And the other is at 5:30. That's 4:30 Jamaica time and 10:30 UK time. However, today, you can call in any time and reason with me about any subject. Today is set aside for a bonding time. And the reason for that is, although I have 2 guests, one guest is attending a funeral, and after the funeral, he's going to an exposition. So I don't know if he will join us. The other is on his way home. I don't know if he's going to be delayed by traffic. So just call in anytime and we can talk. Another reminder, don't forget to tune into Reggae Global Radio, this station, tonight at midnight until 2 a.m. And as we say, relax with the rebel. Last week's feature was slow jams. This week it will be smooth jazz. And as usual, the selection is fantastic. So make it a date and don't be late. The 2 guests this afternoon, if they show up, one is Mr. Andre Hylton, and he's a former member of parliament and a businessman of note. And the other is member of parliament and attorney at law, Mr. Anthony Hylton, and he's one of the opposition's selection to the Constitutional Reform Committee. Should be interesting, and I'm sure you guys will have a lot of questions to ask of him. And again, please don't be shy. This is your chance to ask the question, especially of Mr. Anthony Hylton, because he's on the committee that will be making a recommendation. They don't decide anything. They'll be making a recommendation to the minister regarding the future of Jamaica vis-a-vis the Constitution. And as you know, the Constitution governs just about everything else. Everything cascades from the Constitution. So this is your chance to speak up and speak out and speak very, very loudly. Shout out time. Continued prayers and blessings from Eileen, Papa Trevor, Ma P and family, Bonnie, Sassy and Mrs. Nelson. And Michelle, oops. Sorry about the couldn't attend the birthday party last night, but I was there in spirit. And I'll call you later on and sing a happy birthday song to you. Big shout out to the Reggae Global family, the Meadowbrook crew, the Firehouse crew, the Rollington crew, Donovan, and the Admiral, stay so, no go nowhere. And the crew of hardworking, dedicated, honest members of the JCF and JDF who are desperately trying to keep Jamaica safe and secure. Update. It's been an interesting week for Jamaica. Well, every week is an interesting week, primarily because Jamaica is content rich. Every week there is at least one major controversial event to report on. I'll share a story with you. Last year I was in Jamaica trying to get support for a radio program because I got hit with the bug that, I should say something. I believed I had something to say, and I just needed my voice to get out there. So I met with this gentleman in Jamaica And we were talking about funding and a whole bunch of things. And then we get to the topic of content, material, what you going to talk about in Jamaica. And I was asking him, and he gave me some ideas. And then he said, look, well, you will never have to worry about content in Jamaica because Jamaica is a content-rich country. Things are constantly happening, controversial things. So you'll always have something to write about, something to talk about. And, to be honest with you, I heard him, I listened to him, but in retrospect, he is completely correct, 100%. I'm getting flooded with stories right now, so much so that I have very little time to do anything else. I hope my clients are not listening to me because I've been giving them excuses, but I will take a break this week and tend to some legal stuff. Actually, I started this week. We'll continue into next week. We'll pick up the pace. So my clients, if you're listening to me, don't worry, right? If I have to get a motion in or do a deposition or something like that, don't worry, it will be done. As most of you are aware, about 10 days ago, I filed a lawsuit against Minister Kabina Johnson-Smith. And, it's worth talking about because I have to give you little updates because we're going to keep this going. And as I said on several programs, it will be death by 1,000 cuts until we can get the truth. And we don't believe in stories dying a journalistic death, the 9-day wonder, 7-day wonder. No. And I tell you what, they're very surprised about this lawsuit because this is far, far away from anything they could have imagined. They thought the story was dead, buried. Not so. So I filed a lawsuit against Mr. Kamina Johnson-Smith and the Ministry of Finance for violations of law and administrative procedures. And we went over last week, the details. But here's the update. Yesterday, the minister, through her attorney, provided a response, and it's quite telling. The sum and substance of it is this. The minister did not provide any documentation that my allegations are baseless, untrue, and defamatory. If you remember, about 10 days ago, it was a Wednesday, she said that she saw the complaint. We call it the complaint in America. She saw the complaint online and that it was, her words, baseless, untrue, and defamatory. And then she went on to remind us that, defamation is a charge that you can bring even though, the information is on social media. Yet, we haven't seen anything from her to buttress her claim that the allegations are baseless, untrue, and defamatory. In fact, yesterday was the perfect opportunity for her to provide evidence contradicting my complaint. But instead, she prefers to die by 1,000 cuts. The lawsuit was filed on a Wednesday, but it couldn't be served, or it wasn't served until the following Monday. And that's because of court procedures. The judge had to put the seal on it, and then it could be served. So it was served this past Monday. And I was told that there were some difficulties as far as serving the document over at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, almost as if they didn't want the document. But eventually, it was served. I could just imagine the discussion. Maybe not the Monday, but Tuesday, this past Tuesday. Maybe even Wednesday. For example, I could just hear her experienced legal counsel or legal team asking her these questions. Minister, did Fin Partners Inc. provide you with public relations services for your Commonwealth campaign? I could hear them asking her, Minister, did you pay for those services? Followed by, Minister, if you did not, then it's a gift. And as such, did you file with the Minister of Finance and Public Service concerning this gift? Another question. Minister, did you declare that gift on your statutory declaration to the Integrity Commission as required? Minister, did you declare that gift as income to the tax administrator and pay the applicable taxes? And there are more questions. But they're easy and straightforward questions, and the answers should be equally easy and straightforward. She filed or she didn't file. It's that simple. Instead, they have deflected and are now focused on procedure as opposed to the substance. For example, they have raised the issue, and I think I have the document here. Yeah. They have raised the issue as to whether I have standing to sue, meaning, do I have what's my interest in this case? You know? Why it's so ridiculous is that they know that I've been speaking about corruption for years. They know I've been doing this radio program for at least 6 months, and I've been on other radio programs talking about the same thing. They know that I've applied for the police commissioner's position 3 times. So there's an interest in going to Jamaica and performing law enforcement duties. They know I'm Jamaican. So to ask the court, to say to the court, we need a ruling judge as to whether or not he has any standing in this, it's nonsense. I mean, in my reading of the civil procedure rules, it is abundantly clear that they're wasting the court's time. Particularly since, and I'll just read you something from the Supreme Court of Jamaica Civil Procedure Rules of 2002, which is, in effect, it says here that even if a mistake was made, right? It said, this is section 56.13, subsection 2B. It says at the first hearing, May 29th of next month, the judge must give any directions that may be required to ensure the expeditious and just trial of the claim. And certain rules apply. It says, in particular, the judge may allow the claimant present to amend any claim for an administrative order. Carolyn, big up yourself. Enid, stay up. So, even if there were mistakes made, it says that the judge, May 29th, when we stand before him, procedural errors we're talking about. Like if I'm supposed to dot an I or cross a T and I didn't, the judge can say, all right, fine, you know what? Go ahead and do it. Right? And I'm gonna give them some advice, because you see what happened? When you speak truth, you can't speak it openly early. Because you don't have to worry about, because you can't plan for it. One of the things they claim was that, Mr. Rattigan filed on behalf of himself and the Jamaicans and the diaspora in Jamaica, and if it's more than 5 people, then he has to do a motion asking the court for him to represent the class and so on and so forth. A clear reading of the statute does not say that. But even assuming, you see how stupid they are? Even assuming that that's the case, that I have to file, because surely more than 5 people in Jamaica, more than 5 people in the diaspora. So if I have to file to have the judge certify that I'm representing the class, the rule says more than 5. This rule says the judge will allow the claimant to amend any claim for an administrative order. So guess what? We just cross off diaspora and cross off Jamaica, and guess how much people left? One dege person left. So guess what happened? The rule no apply. The rule no apply. So you see what I say? Them a waste people time on. Them say there's no application before the court pursuant to Civil Procedure 21.2. Wrong. The legislation prayed in these proceedings have no foolishness. The applicant has no standing to bring. The court ought not to exercise its discretion to grant the declaration. Why not? The application has not sought leave to bring these proceedings. the gentleman who's representing her in is a senior most council in Jamaica. Braham. He's also a senator. He's also on the Constitutional Reform Committee. Bright man. No, him and him law firm say the applicant has not sought leave to bring these proceedings. No, let me school them. If I were asking for something called mandamus, writ of mandamus, which means that I'm asking the court to tell a government official to do something that they're required to do, then with that, you need something called leave of court. So you have to produce the action to the judge. The judge has to look at it and say, okay, this warrant's going forward. I'll grant you leave, and then now you can file it. There's something called an administrative order, a declaration. That doesn't require leave of court. You go straight to court, and that's what I did. I went straight to court, and it says it on the application too. It says on the application, it says that it's an action for an administrative order. So, look, I always have to refer to behind me. That's where I come from. And not much is expected of people coming from Bakeso. But see, may your soul rest in eternal peace. May their souls rest in eternal peace. I had a mother and father who said, and I'm the only son, Junior, that's my pet name, Junior. We are going to spend for you for go to school. And we expect things from you. And I never forget, my father said to me one time when I was taking common entrance exam, he said, if you don't pass, I have a hand cart where I say in a Coronation Market where I go and buy gear. And then you can use it down there and run around and sell produce and this and use the hand cart in the market. Because that's where you're going. If you don't produce based on the fact that we have shown so much interest in you, and we have invested the little money we have to scoop up and scrape up and pay for little private lesson and thing like that. Mama and Daddy, bless on us all. Teachers like Mr. Grant, Miss Millwood, and the rest of the crew. Teachers like Miss Cohen from Balmaji Primary School. People from the neighborhood, Miss Tammy, Mr. Guntley, Mr. Hendricks, Mr. Williams. People who saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, and they urged me to continue. And they influenced me, and in some instance, forced me to continue. How me can, and I don't practice law in Jamaica. So how me can know say an administrative order doesn't require leave of court? The application I filed before the court, it says administrative order, that's what we want. And these gentlemen of great renown, this law firm, said that I need leave of court to bring these proceedings. And then they asked the court to determine my action to be frivolous, vexatious, and an abuse of the process of the court. Them abuse the process of the court with these frivolous defenses. And we will bring that to the judge's attention. But the interesting thing is, here's the interesting thing. The question is, do you admit the whole of the claim? Those are my allegations about the minister. So they're asking her, do you admit the whole of the claim? No. Next question. Do you admit any part of the claim? Answer, no. What's interesting is, we see nothing here from her saying that she filed with the ministry. Also, interestingly, it says, what is your own address? And it says, 2 Port Royal Street. All right? See with me there. think I must say, I think I left it upstairs. Because there is a document here. Oh, here it is. 2 Port Royal Street. Yeah? I know I turn to, ladies and gentlemen, Exhibit A. A registration statement filed by Fin Partners, Inc., with the U.S. government. Number 4, name of foreign principal, Camina Johnson Smith. Number 5, address of foreign principal, 2 Port Royal Street. And the minister come out and say, Minister of Information came out and said that this document, there's nowhere Jamaica is indicated on this document. He said Jamaica had nothing to do with it. 2 Port Royal Street, and Fin Partners document filed with the U.S. government. And in their response before the court, what's your own address? 2 Port Royal Street. Same person we are talking about. So, nothing. And I submit to you that there will be nothing for now coming from them. When we get to court, I would love for them to produce a document. Because if they cannot produce a document, she's in serious jeopardy. Not only with the finance ministry, she's in serious jeopardy with the tax administrator, and she's in serious jeopardy with the Integrity Commission. And in fact, if it's proven that she did not claim the gift with the Integrity Commission, she's looking at up to $2 million in fines, 2 years in prison. That being the case, we are going to ask the judge to send a very clear message to the Jamaican people about the efforts of the court to stem the flow and the tide of corruption, of mismanagement, of waste, of people violating laws and administrative orders, simply because they can. And we're going to ask for 2 years in prison. 2 years in prison. At hard labor, we're going to ask for that. And we won't stop. Now, regarding the fertilizer matter, and the minister is involved with the fertilizer matter as well. There are connections there. And some of you, maybe most of you, have heard me talk about the connections. But recently she came out and she said, my ministry was involved with Morocco, and we were able to get fertilizer when no one could get fertilizer, and fertilizer this, fertilizer that, and the fertilizer was distributed island-wide by RADA. When I've spoken to members of parliament with a knowledge about this, and from what they're telling me, it appears at this point that only 500,000 pounds of fertilizer were distributed. But 2.6 million pounds came in. 2.1 million pounds are unaccounted for. This is just based on what I'm being told. Can't prove it, but I don't know me. We'll get to the bottom of the story. So they responded saying that they are now in receipt of my request for information. This is after I filed like last year, I think it was December 3rd. And 2 emails, and they said they didn't get it. Now they've gotten it, so they said they'll respond. So we shall know the truth within 30 days. Stay tuned. The diaspora has been known over the years for making a little noise, and I said this last week, but not biting those who deserve to be bitten, particularly the corrupt politicians and the governments at large. And you notice plural, governments. For those of you who would be inclined to make derogatory statements about legal action being taken by diaspora members, I beg you not to give in to the political hype or the personal attacks. Instead, I urge you to read the documents. And the documents are freely available. Read them with an open, objective, and critical mind and come to a decision. Here's another instance where the minister is involved. Global Jamaica Diaspora Council in America. I've been warning them to take heed of the Foreign Agents Registration Act. But even more than that, I know we have to bring on, we'll get soon. I don't know if Kevin is back there and if him line up already yet. But I called my representative. I won't call her name. But I called her this week to have her come on my program. We agreed that she would come on May 6th, next week, Saturday. Now, keep in mind, the Northeast has the greatest concentration of Jamaicans. We're talking, Northeast. We're talking Vermont, Maine, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Connecticut, New York, Delaware, Maryland, and I think Virginia, DC. More than 1 million, right? She represents all of us in the Northeast. So I called her. We agreed, May 6th. Then she said to me, hey, what's your program about? Do you have a video or something I could look at? I said, yeah, just go to YouTube, type in Reason with Rattigan, and you'll see a bunch of videos there you can look. Mama no is no fool. I tell her that. You know why she asked? I know why I tell her. She came back and she said, I can't come on the program, unfortunately, on the 6th, right? I want to see if I can find I don't know if I'll see it, her response, but her response was quite interesting because she made it clear to me. She said something about onboarding. She said she was elected in February of this year. And she said she had to do some onboarding things. And I wrote back to her asking when would the onboarding events be completed. And she wrote me back saying that she would have to wait to hear from the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. Let that sink in. When you hear what I say? She said she would have to wait on the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. She was advised not to come and speak with me before getting the onboard training or whatever. Now, it's my understanding that she already had spoken to the media. She had already spoken to some other people. But with me, she said, no, they said, we can't do it. We just have to wait until we get on board. No, I can't find it. Maybe I'll find it sometime during the break. And forgive me, I should have queued this up, but I didn't know we'd get this far. But think about that, especially people who live in the Northeast. Your rep reports to the Jamaican government. Your rep reports to the Jamaican. Your rep has to get permission from the Jamaican government as to when and where, and why, and how she can talk to you. Does that sound like somebody who's representing you? Now, here's the thing. I can speak freely like this about her because guess what? She's going to have to come on some of these programs. She's going to have to come and talk about her representation to us. She has to. So it's just a matter of time now before she comes on, and I'd love to hear her explanation about the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council, her role, her responsibility, and how she plans to represent us. I'm just waiting with bated breath to see how she's going to do that. But be that as it may, we will wait. So far, we have a name for the foundation that we're trying to establish. Most of you heard about the foundation, the legal foundation that we're trying to establish to raise funds so that we can use those funds to do exactly what I've done and what others have done and what we're planning to do, which is to hold the government accountable in court and also before donor agencies and donor countries. So the name so far we have is One Jamaica, because we're all one at the end of the day. Forget about political separation, class separation, and all the other types of separation. We're all one. So it's One Jamaica Legal Defense Foundation. We're open to other names as this is not final. So if you have a name that you think sounds better than this or might capture the essence of what we're trying to do, then by all means, please send it in and we'll definitely consider it. I spoke with the gentleman who was elected to draft and file the pertinent documents. And in a few weeks after his class is over, he assured me that he will have the documents ready to be filed. Well, I don't hear from no. Oh, Carolyn, the minister's digging a deep hole. A very dear friend of mine said, don't try your case in public. But one of the things I've learned is sometimes you want to try your case in public, especially when you don't have, when it's not open to interpretation, when it's just black and white. It's either you file or you didn't file. And the thing is, if you file, it's not on me. It's not on me. It's going to be a reflection on the ministry because the ministry told me that you didn't file. And also keep in mind, folks, this is the same ministry. Remember when FSC with SSL, the SSL debacle, and FSC said that they sent a letter over to the minister explaining what was going on, and the minister said he didn't get it. Then he came out of the woodwork and said, well, I found it. I spent the weekend and I went through drawers and drawers with my staff, and I found it, even though it was sent by courier to him, and it was sent by email to his personal email. Said he couldn't find it, didn't get it. First, didn't get it, then couldn't find it, then found it, right? This is the same ministry. Keep that in mind. So if they come up now with a document, and we've said it before, I've called out the three ladies who are responsible for sending out the document that I received. I call them out publicly and say, listen, if anyone should approach you and ask you to submit a document, backdate a document, call me immediately and I will seek refuge for you with the U.S. Embassy. I will personally call and ask about refuge for you. Now, I can't guarantee anything, but I will definitely, if you feel like your life is in danger because of this, then fine, we'll take it there. So so that's kind of like a proactive move. So now they know that, hey, if we show up with something with a prior date, with a date earlier than March 30th of this year, there will be problems. So we will see what happens. Oh, and by the way, there's a small group of us working diligently. And we have prioritized certain incidents and certain individuals. And in the coming weeks and months, we will take, again, some legal action. Not naming any names, but we'll be doing that. Right now we're collecting and collating. And I know that in the instance of one individual, we're waiting for one document to come in, one dege document. And when that document comes in, then, we will deal with it. Kevin, if you're there, is Mr. Hylton ready, sir? I don't see him. Kevin. I tell Mr. Kevin abandoned me. All right. Well, we don't have Kevin, but we have Rattigan. So let's talk about some other things. Let's talk about the Constitution. And I say that because right now in Jamaica, they're looking to do some things with the Constitution. They're reforming the Constitution. I'm not sure if they should. Hold on a second. I'm not sure if they should just do away with it completely and start all over as they did in South Africa. I'm not sure because what they're doing right now is they're they've prioritized some things with the Constitution. And one of the first priority, actually, the main priority is to remove the king as head of state. Ah, there he is. So, what we'll do is, since I see that Mr. Hylton is here, um, Andre, that is, not Anthony, um, I'll bring him on. Mr. Hylton, sir, how are you? Cannot hear you. Can't hear you. People might say it's a lot of technical difficulties over the past several weeks or so. But we've managed to overcome them every single time. But it's a disruption, nevertheless, you know. Hold on there. Kevin, may I leave you now? All right. Um, so for those of you who have never seen this gentleman, his name is Andre Hylton, former MP and an astute businessman. And he has a lot to offer. He has a lot to say concerning the direction of Jamaica. In fact, he was on board the ship leading Jamaica in a particular direction, but he's no longer there. I don't know what his plans are if he plans to get back on that ship, but we'll find out as during the course of this interview. Well, Mr. Hylton, welcome to Reason with Rattigan, sir. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy Saturday afternoon to be with us. From and what's your purpose? What's your mission in life for the Jamaican people?
Well, as I was saying before, um, I'm a businessman. Grew up in the rural parts of St. Catherine, which is close to Riversdale. I don't know if you know there. Riversdale is a place I have a thing called Natural Bridge, a tourist destination, one of the wonders of the world, they say. But past Riversdale, you go up to Williamsville here, or then to a district called Newport. So that's where I was born. So in a Jamaica, you call me a country boy.
Okay.
Yeah, so we know if we run barefoot to school and go a river, go full jump at the side of the house and go tie out goat and the whole 9 yards. You know, enough people don't know I'm a countryman. Them things I come from uptown, you know.
Right.
And then I came to Kingston and dropped out of school, started working, then moved to my mother's house, and then started my own business at tender age of 19 years old with $40 on a bicycle. And the Lord has been good, and I have a very supportive family. And we were able to establish a household name in Jamaica, Andre's Auto.
Mm-hmm.
Especially 10, 15 years ago, we were market leaders. We're not in that same position because I've, for my sins, got involved with politics, you know. But before I got involved with politics, when I started making money, I've always wanted to give back because that's how my parents grew me. We always learned to share. And so I started Guiding Light Foundation with a wonderful group of young professionals. And then I started working with Dr. Peter Phillips through his foundation, which we got started called Future Vision Foundation. So the majority of my work in the earlier days as a businessman was really giving back as a philanthropist, putting on health fairs, doing all kinds of things. Then I joined Rotary, and I was the Centennial President 2004, 2005. We transformed that dust bowl in front of Dunrobin Primary School. That was my major project as president. And with the support of the Rotary Club of Kingston, we were able to transform it. I don't know if you know that place. It was called the famous Dust Bowl.
No.
When you were little, you probably remember. Right at Cassia Park there, man. Right, right at Cassia Park, man. You look across where the Dunrobin Primary School. It was all dust.
Okay.
Deep in them. But we transformed that. We did a community center. We organized the field, irrigated it, solar lights. We built a new basic school, multi-purpose court, road, fencing, everything. We spent quite a bit of money as our centennial project at the Rotary Club of Kingston, and really transformed that era and people's lives in that area. And then after, people started asking me, both JLP and PMP, about entering politics. I really had no interest, Rattigan, because when you think of politics, you think of corruption. That's the first thing, law them corrupt.
Right.
But when I started working with Dr. Phillips, I realized that the work that he does as a member of parliament, trying to help the less fortunate, and Dr. Phillips was always a very open man. He was never one of those persons, boy, we're only helping PNP. He was about helping people. And so I worked a lot with him for years. And then my friend Philip Paulwell, when we lost in 2007, when Portia was lost that first election, he asked me to help with the organization in Eastern St Andrew. And, you know, I just went and helped and organized the place. And then the people said, well, why are you to run? I really had no intentions of running. I just went to help because I have some organizational skills. And I brought that to Eastern St Andrew. And the people says, you will want to run. And of course, that was the end of that. Maybe if I knew what they mean by running, I'd have run.
Run the other way.
But I ran and won the seat and served with Portia Simpson Miller in Parliament and did quite a bit of things in the constituency. And of course, lost by a very slim margin in 2016. But we did a lot of work in terms of infrastructure, gullies, bridges, roads. And one of the other things that we did is a crime reduction in Augustown. I used the Office of Member of Parliament to coordinate the various stakeholders, including the corner youths. And we were able to bring down murders from 40, a high of 40 per year, to zero, 1 in 2015 and 0 in 2016. And Joel Ness and Flavor Williams went and celebrated, which they ought to, but they really did not understand clearly how we got from 40 to 0. But it was the work of the people, and I facilitated that work as the Member of Parliament. And that's why I believe that crime can be solved. And I told Dr. Chang, we can solve crime. So in a sense, I'm a businessman. We had up to 6 branches across the island at one time. We do parts, we do vehicle sales, we do fleet management, we do repairs. And it's kind of scaled down now because I'm not doing that level of business anymore. But still in business and still have an interest. I'm working with the People's National Party to assist in whatever way in rebuilding and reconnecting. So I'm working with Mark Golden, who is the leader, General Secretary, who's Dayton Campbell, and to see how we can put the party in the best position to win the upcoming election. And I definitely believe that the people wants a change. And I also believe that the People's National Party will listen to the people and bring about true change at this time. So in that sense, in a ballpark, that's why I have 2 children, and I have lovely children who are now big people. And I enjoy life, enjoy Jamaica, and want the best for Jamaica. I didn't take up my mother's offer to get green card. I told her I'm all right. So all my siblings, my mother has 10 children, and all of them in the States except me. Now they want to come back because America is not all that it is sold to be, you know? So now they would like to return to Jamaica, and I will do whatever I can to facilitate them. But I'm in Jamaica because I said, look here, I will turn off the light in this place. And I said before, the diaspora is an important group of people. We have probably close to 3 million Jamaicans living abroad. And every single time that there's a big decision to be made, in the direction of Jamaica, the diaspora has played an important role. So I'm going to ask you to continue your agitation because you and all members of the diaspora are needed. The help is needed. Can't be JLP and PMP, can't be PSOJ alone. We want to hear the voice of the diaspora speaking loudly because you have an investment in this little rock. There's nowhere in the world you can go, man, and they don't know a Jamaican.
That's true.
There's nowhere in the world. My daughter migrated to the States and she tell them in school, say, I'm a Jamaican and proud to be a Jamaican. You're somebody when you're a Jamaican. You're unique when you're a Jamaican. And we are one of the greatest in the nation. We must value it and ensure that whichever government is in power, they do the things that are right for the Jamaican people. Where people just come out of slavery 100 and probably 90 years ago, right? We still have with us a lot of the psychological damages that came off the plantation. We have to reverse those. Some of the injustices, the land issue, the issue of self-esteem, the issue of education, still needs to be addressed. And it needs a government who understands, while we embrace capitalism in its shall I say, we embrace the building of capital, we must have a conscience for the people. So in a nutshell, that's how I view things.
All right, let me ask you a question about you before then we start asking questions about Jamaica. Are you being rejuvenated and are you recalibrating to re-enter politics? I know you said you're working with the party and individuals, but do you have your eyes on the prize, so to speak?
I've had discussions with the party leader and some other hierarchy of members of the party who have indicated that I have an interest in re-entering, but my personality, you see, is being adversarial is not in my nature, unless it's absolutely necessary. So I don't believe in this internal fight and fighting your own for seats and this kind of thing. I believe that, yes, there's a time and place for that, but I believe that we should negotiate as much as possible the candidates that represent various seats rather than the adversarial kind of internal conflict. So yes, the answer is yes. I've thought about it, and I'm awaiting the party's leadership to let us have that discussion. But I'm open to it.
Okay. Now, you mentioned the drop in the homicide rate under your leadership. That seems to me a remarkable achievement. So why is it then that didn't translate into a victory for you at the polls?
Politics are strange things on election day, you know. You can be. So first of all, the constituency is a marginal or a swing seat. If you have a swing against your party, it's going to be hard for you to hold on to it. And I believe in 2016 we certainly had a small swing against the party. But yet I was only one of the 10 constituencies in Jamaica that polled more votes than 2011, believe it or not. Very few constituencies, only 10 polled more votes than 2011. My seat, Eastern St Andrew, was one of those seats. We won back the middle class votes for the first time since 1976. But there were some internal issues, that's number one. And unless you're able to bring out your votes on the day in full numbers in a seat like that, you can't. And the other thing what's interesting about my election in 2016, we had a lot of spoiled ballots. And usually, a man excited him right 2x beside PNP. If you did a magisterial recount, the court would give those to the PNP. And when we calculated all the spoil ballots in our favor, I would have only lost by 29 votes at the time. But it was still a loss, Jamaica, if it's one vote, is a loss. But there were some internal issues as well, so that contributed. We did much better in every cluster around the constituency, except, I believe, Augustown Primary School and School of Hope, which is in the Tavern area, in Happy. But apart from that, all the other 22 clusters polled more votes than the previous election. So it meant that I was doing something right. But also, the opponent brought out a lot more votes than normal for their party. They increased as well too. So it's just one of those very competitive elections, and money plays an important role too. And if you don't have sometimes a man with more money, if you have more money to spend on the day, you're likely sometimes it affects you.
Well, let's talk about money and elections in Jamaica. Let me preface it by saying you don't seem to be a sore loser to me. I'm looking at you and I'm looking at your demeanor and I'm listening to your words, and you seem like, hey, I lost, and that's the end of that. But if you could go back, because you said if you don't have money on the day, are you talking about on election day, or are you saying if you don't have money for the election cycle?
The election cycle. The day is also very important because you can lose it on the day as well in terms of mobilization. And one of the things, you might have remembered when you were growing up, you heard about saltfish and wrapped up with flour and cornmeal and bushel.
Yes,
So
indeed.
that whole buying votes has been a real issue from 1944. And I think this is probably something the diaspora could get involved with. I believe it's something we must change, because the only time that a Jamaican has the same power, an ordinary Jamaican from the inner city has the same power as Michael Leachin, it is on election day. And I think our forefathers died and was burnt at the stakes so that their great-great-great-grandchildren could have a choice. And I really wish that we ought to do some education, bring back civics in school and political education. Let people understand that politics is not about PNP and JLP, but in fact it translates to governance. So when you look at the kind of governance you want for your country and for your people and for your children, then you vote intelligently. And another thing I'm going to say to your brother Rattigan, the intelligent people of this country, the lower middle class, the middle class, upper middle class, and the upper class, they do not all the time, I think, play their part in voting on election day. And I believe if we get everyone, take 10 minutes, 15 minutes, go to EOJ office, get enumerated election day and go and vote. If we have smart people voting intelligently, you'll have more responsible government. But if you have hungry belly people, I'm not saying everybody vote is hungry belly, but you have some people who just want the money for vote. And that's the person who's going to decide on the government of Jamaica. All of us need to vote so that we have a voice.
Now, you mentioned the selfish syndrome, essentially buying votes. Now, a person with your intelligence, your resilience, your smarts, your connection to the community, it sounds to me like you shouldn't have lost, but you did. Are you saying, and I say this with all due respect, are you saying that you have to do the selfish along with them? You have to go along to get, because since they're doing it, you're saying, since they're doing it, and look, you're saying, look, based on everything you've said before, you were an attractive MP and you were an attractive candidate at the time. And so for them to walk away from you and go somewhere else because of the selfish syndrome, are you saying, well, maybe I should have engaged in that as well, and with other things I have going for me, then I would have won?
Well, I would say that I did not do enough in educating my people on the value of their vote. That's what I would say. I don't intend to get into this selfish business on election day and to buy votes. Yeah, there are people who want a bus fare to go back home. Sometimes people tell they're coming all the way from Mobile to vote and it doesn't mean back them bus fare. That kind of thing is fine. But me not going to me not believe in this paying a man. I think you're selling your soul when you get up and pay. I believe it's spitting in our forefathers' faces. When you think of what we went through, the struggle, when you think of the 500 people who were murdered in St. Thomas in the Moran Bay Rebellion, when you think of the Christmas Revolution, when you think of the hundreds of thousands and millions of our black foreparents who were dragged to pieces and burnt at the stakes, just that we could have a choice. I believe if we put up with that sort of thing, we're encouraging our people to sell their soul. And I believe it is wrong, and we should try and stop it rather than look at competing with who have the most money to buy votes. I'm not into that.
Well, I mean, you're acting true to form because somebody here in the chat said, big up Andre Hylton, a man with integrity and humility. And I've found that to be true. And I've found it personally to be true, and I've heard it myself. I know I'm reading it, so it's confirmation of everything. That's good about you. Now, let me ask you this. You've been on the sideline now for a bit, and you're looking at everything that's going on in Jamaica, and you still refuse to leave, even though you have the opportunity, you had, and you still have the opportunity to leave. And you say, no, I'm going to be here. If anybody going to turn off the lights in Jamaica, it's going to be me, last man, right? What's the biggest issue facing Jamaica now for you? What's the biggest issue holding back Jamaica economically, educationally, and otherwise? What's the biggest issue for you?
I think it's education. I believe it's education.
It's not crime.
No, because crime, if you fix education, you fix crime.
You think so?
So even though you're going to lock up some youth here now, take them off of the street for 6 months, when them come back out, look here, it's not gun don't kill people, you know. It's people kill people.
I thought it was bullet that killed people.
Well, the bullet, yeah. Well, you're more clinical than
No, I'm joking. Just making a
you're
joke.
correct, you're correct. So is what is in the heart of man that causes him to become a murderer? That's a question. That's a searching question. How did that child, that 3-year-old boy, that 5-year-old boy, that 8-year-old boy, became a murderer? What was his experience? Track all the murderers in Jamaica and you will see they have been abused, they were beaten by their mother and fathers, they were abused in all kinds of ways. We have to fix those things, the social fabric and the education, and you have to do them. You have to use the school because it is technically a nursery. It shouldn't be, but with our history of slavery, we have to use the schools as a nursery and as a transformational room. So we have to start with the basic school, work with the grandmothers, work with the churches, and see if we can develop a young human being that will become the responsible, vibrant Jamaican that we want them to be. So I think the number one thing is education, because if you fix education, you can tie into education commerce. You can look at the kinds of things that we're competitive with in the world, and you can bring that to the schools. Whether it is services, whether it's agriculture, whatever we are good at. We are good at some things, you know, we have a huge competitive advantage in many, many areas, and we can sell that to the world. So we can bring that into the education system and train the people the kinds of people that we want to move our country forward. We have to be strategic. We can't be just all over the place. There are just certain things that we're not good at. We have ginger that is one of the best in the world. We have the coffee that is one of the best in the world. We have cocoa that is one of the best in the world. We have pepper that is one of the best in the world. And we have many other things. Why aren't we planting out these areas? What are the things that we're importing that we can substitute? We have to be deliberate, man, and stop the foolishness. Yes, there is a WTO, and yes, you have to manage the process and how you deal with it. But we have a crisis, and we have to treat it as such. I want to say one other thing, that people sometimes, I'm not one of those persons who join this argument that politicians never do anything. I will say that politicians slash governments, successive governments, could do more. Yes? But from 1944, and especially from 55 upwards, because Norman Manley became the first premier in charge of technically spending the tax dollar. And he did a fantastic job between, people don't talk about it, what Norman Manley did between 59 and 62.
Hold that thought there. Hold that thought about what Norman Manley did. Let me see what this
Yeah.
call. First of all, see if the phone is working. Caller, hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Reason with Rattigan.
Good evening.
Yes, caller. You have a question?
I'm one of them here.
I beg your pardon?
Mr. Rattigan?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I'm listening to Mr. Hylton, but it seems as if he's confused,
Why do you say that?
Well, number one, there's nothing in his presentation about the power imbalance in Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the disenfranchisement of black Jamaicans in Jamaica. And that's something which Mr. Hylton, the People's National Party, and GLP always shy away from.
Okay, Mr. Hylton can hear you. You wanna pause it up?
So my question to Mr.
Okay.
Hylton is, how is he going to shift the balance where we see not just one individual, but many more individuals, black individuals play a much larger part in the economy of the country?
Okay, hold on one second. Mr. Hylton, did you hear that?
Well, he's correct.
Okay.
There is still a huge imbalance.
Caller, thank you.
Right? The caller is correct. We can't go around that. There's still a huge imbalance. And especially under this administration, I don't think I think it has even widened since this administration has come around for the last 7 years. But things has been done, and I believe that education is going to assist us in this regard. Because if we need entrepreneurs, we have a natural entrepreneur spirit, but you need somebody with some sense to go into business. You can't have a man going into business and no debit and credit and gross profit and net profit. So you need to educate the people. So yes, what he's saying is correct, and there are things that can be done. Michael Manley did a lot in the 70s. I believe P.J. Patterson did a lot, but P.J. Patterson was also disappointed with some of the results based on what he did in empowering local entrepreneurs, local bankers, local. Remember in the 60s, man, I don't remember if we have any black man owning a bank in Jamaica. Now we have Jamaican black people who own most of the bank, if you think about it, right? Various industries were not controlled by the average black or brown Jamaican. It was controlled by foreigners. When you walk into Citibank, you couldn't even get a job there as a clerk, right? So we have come a far way, but yes, he's correct, more needs to be done. And let me tell you how I view, I have some money friends, you see? And sometimes I think when we speak of socialism and we speak of empowering the masses, it's as if we're going to take away the wealth of the Jamaicans who have it. It's not that. But if you empower a little man and the little man start make more money, meaningful money, the rich man going to get richer, Rattigan, if I can go to courts and take out a new bed tomorrow morning and I can, courts going to make more money. If I can scare my family down to Sandals and enjoy a weekend as a Jamaican black man, Sandals going to make more money. So we need to focus on the masses, both in terms of the entire upliftment, education, their headspace, in terms of the economy, their economic situation. And once the little man make more money and is able to spend it wisely, the bigger man, the rich man, will make more money. But if we all have a little pie and we don't want to grow the pie, then you're scraping off somebody else's piece of them, some of the cake, slice of the cake, rather than growing the pie that more people can participate and your slice become bigger. So yes, the caller is correct, and we have to do much more in transforming more lives. But look here, think about housing for a moment, Rattigan.
Mm-hmm.
1957, Norman Manley built the first low-income housing scheme in Jamaica, which is Mona Heights. The second low-income housing scheme in Jamaica was Harborview. Uptown people never want the house, some of them says matches box. But the average civil servants and postmistress and teacher had an opportunity to own a home. And then you look at Portmore, the largest housing scheme in the Caribbean. You look at Cornwall Courts in Montego Bay, the second largest housing scheme built under PJ Pat's administration, right? The other Portmore was built over various administrations. The People's National Party has done a lot in providing housing. Look at the Michael Manley initiative with the land lease program. There are many farmers in Jamaica who own like a 5-10 acre land now because Michael Manley created the land lease program. So the slaves that left the plantation 190 years ago roundabout now owns a piece of the rock because they have one piece of land. Enough people know them, and granny did own this piece of land, and grandfather, and they own a little piece of Jamaica. If you look at education, in 1357, Norman Manley established common entrance while other people were talking about saltfish and the saltfish better education. 1957, there were less than 2,000 youngsters in high school in Jamaica. Believe that. Right now, Jamaica College owns about 2,400 children. In 57, there were less than 2,000 in the entire island of Jamaica.
But in 57, the population was far less than it is now.
Yeah, but not much less. You've got probably 2.5 million, whichever. It was still, nobody couldn't afford to go to high school. That's the point.
Let me ask you a couple of questions here. One of them, you mentioned that, no black people own banks and industries and so on and so forth. And I think this is just my personal opinion that we have to look beyond the color, because if you look at what's going on with some of the banks, where now they're charging you some exorbitant fees for things that some of the same banks that we talk owned by white people or owned by others or owned by foreigners, Jamaicans weren't being charged those fees, right? And the banks charging those fees, no, they're owned by black people. That's point one. You can address them as you see fit, 1, 2, or 3, or 3, 2, and 1, whatever. Second point is education. You say, look, we have to fix education. And I don't think you're going to get much pushback on that. But I'll relate the story to you. 2 days ago, I had business at a charter school here in Maryland, the best charter school in the state. And I was talking to the principal. And the principal said to me, for this new school year, she said, we're getting 4 new teachers from Jamaica. I was proud when she said that, but I was also disheartened because I was conflicted, because I'm like, yeah, I'm happy Jamaicans are coming here and the Jamaicans are making a contribution. But then I looked at it on the flip side and I said, but wait a minute. Those 4 teachers are 4 teachers who won't be teaching next year in Jamaica. So now you got wherever they were, the class size is going to get bigger, right? Or if they've replaced them with 4 teachers, probably not with the same caliber of teachers that just left. And the third thing is that we talk about the PNP. And last night I had a wonderful program with Andre Stevens, and I highly recommend it to the listening audience. It's 4 hours, so you may have to take it in small chunks. But you really should go and listen to that. It was heartfelt. It was very educational. It was entertaining too. But one of the things that we talked about was the silence of the PNP, because he's saying, look, there's so many things going on wrong with the JLP now, and yet we don't hear from the PNP to highlight these things and point them out to people so that people understand what's going on, and then people can take a stand in their future. He said they're just silent, and even when leader of the opposition, Mark Golding, would say something, it's lifeless, basically, or it has a shelf life of maybe a day or two, and then it's gone, it's forgotten, it's buried. So take any one of those three things that I just mentioned to you, and just tell us what your opinions are about
All right,
them.
it's a different set of problem with the banks, eh? We had a problem before where our people could not even get decent jobs in a bank. And we solved that problem where bank managers now and owners are Jamaicans. And not necessarily black people, but it's basically black people. Some just high brown and call themselves high brown. But it's black people same way.
Right.
And we are all black. We just have different tones of black, but we are black people. We are locals, you know. And we are an inclusive country. So if you're Spanish or you're English or you're Indian or you're Chinese, we embrace it. That's how Jamaica is. That's how we are as a people. So it's not about me talking about black because it's 90% of us are of that hue. So we have a different problem. Now that you have solved the problem of you can't get to work at bank, white enough or brown enough, to the point where we have bank managers, high-level jobs, and of course owners of banks. Now that brings us to a new problem where the banks are operating without, in my regard, in my estimation, without conscience. We have to solve that. Jackson brought a private member's motion to Parliament. And what we need to talk about is the unfair charges, which is what you're alluding to, of these banks on poor people, taking their money even for not doing anything. If you go in the bank and look at the sign, them charge you. So I think it's wrong. And this government, the Andre Hylton-led government, has refused to take that motion because they are the government. And the opposition can't do anything about it because they railroad it. So it is really government, and we have to put it squarely at the feet. And it's not about getting rid of commerce. It's not about the banks can't charge fees, but you must have a conscience. And so that needs to be looked at, and I think we need a change of administration who is sympathetic towards the poor and what they have to go through. That is one. The second thing about the brain drain, I agree. Yes, we want the money to come back, union makes a good business, and that's important. When we lose our senior teachers, people who genuinely love people, love children, and wants them to do well, and sometimes we get teachers who are less experienced, it affects the quality of our education. So the last round of salary adjustment, I don't think did justice, especially to our senior teachers. I believe that, yes, the government has done some good. I must commend them for the good that they do, but it's not enough. And we are still losing some of our good teachers, doctors, nurses. Other thing that we also can do is to train more. And yes, the younger ones to go, but we must do more to keep the senior ones, because experience teaches wisdom. So the brain drain is a real problem, and if we talk about fixing the education system, we need quality people to educate the next generation. So that, I believe, the People's National Party government will fix. Damian Crawford did the manifesto last time, a really excellent manifesto. You should take a read of it. And it will show you the soul of the PNP, what the PNP had in mind. Matter of fact, a lot of the changes that this government has come about with, whether it's paternity leave, whether it's to buy and own, there's our plans from the PNP. The roads that they are building now came out of the PNP's plans, and money was there and all of that. Nothing is wrong. It's a good thing that they continue. That's a compliment when somebody copies you. But the Jamaican people need to know that it is coming from the belly of the People's National Party, because we genuinely are interested in the upliftment of the masses so that everybody will be uplifted. There's a rising tide, raise all ships. We want to rise all of the tides so that all Jamaicans can have a better life. Middle class people can make more money. Poor people can make more money. Rich people can make more money. That's the PNP and the government that we want to see.
But the thing is, we're hearing it from your mouth now. right? I don't know how long the message will last or who it will who will gravitate to it. But this is exactly what I'm hearing, that we're not seeing enough. And I don't want to call it grandstanding, but we're just not seeing enough from the opposition party in terms of delivering a message and having staying power behind that message so that it will resonate with people. It will leave an imprint in them. And that's the complaint I heard last night. I mean, and I'm asking you because I don't know. I'm not there. So,
Well, I will agree that because many times people ask me, I go out, I'm a social person, I go out all the time to different functions, and people say, well, what I don't hear from the party. And when I ask what they don't hear, the party has spoken about it. Sometimes it has not gone, the message does not go through. I agree with that. A couple of things, why the leader don't say it? I hear the leader say it, right? But let me just say this though, we have an opportunity to strengthen the People's National Party. And if we strengthen the party as a strong unit, a united force, then I think we will get through more of these messages. It's important that we unite the PNP and it is strong. The number one reason why people vote in Jamaica is not because they like the MP, or the candidate, or the real number one reason is party lines. I like the PNP. I'm voting for the PNP because I'm a PNP. So there's a strong party sentiment, and I believe the General Secretary spoke to it the other day. And so getting the party strong rather than just getting individuals strong, I believe we have a better chance. Because I remember Dr. Herbert Gill did a study was commissioned by the Gleaner in 2015. And it showed that the most popular MP at the time, Portia, was Prime Minister and Member of Parliament. And she was the most popular. It's only 20% of the people say, I am voting because of my MP. The other 80% who go and vote because of his PMP or they want a change or something. But the MP really does not carry as much swing as we think sometimes.
Okay.
But the party, getting the party strong, which I think we're on that trajectory now, and maintaining its strength and attractiveness, then we can be a force.
Well,
they often say a united PNP cannot be beat.
Well, yeah, I heard that last night. That a united PNP cannot lose in Jamaica, but a united JLP can lose. But the last election, approximately 37% of the eligible population, people on the voter registration list, voted. 37%. And of that 37%, I think it was like 22% or something like that, voted for the JLP. And now they have a mandate because that 22% translated into a landslide victory. Yep. So the question then is, what's different? What's being done now? You just said, well, they're on a trajectory, but people are saying we still don't see it. And if they're saying they don't see it, then the opposition party is in trouble because people are saying, well, we don't see any reason to change our minds from the last time and go vote this time. So what can you tell us that the opposition party is doing?
Well, one of the things you must remember, in the last election, it's really an unusual situation because we were in the middle of COVID, in the height of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a lady who has 13 votes in her home came to me and showed me her finger and said, look, I have voted, but the younger one in the family says, the rest is not coming. Says, why? She says, well, we have children and elders in the family, and the scare of COVID, we don't want to come and mix up out here. And she didn't come out and vote. So that was a major, major, major issue. I also believe that there was real genuine fear that people with COVID will come out and vote and mix up with everybody. That propaganda was spread. So there's a lot that was done. And the next thing that happened, I believe, is that the party was not united. And we just came out of a presidential race just a couple months before. And it takes a while for that to heal.
Okay.
So let's put that in in perspective.
Okay.
To say that, it also affected the JLP, because as you just said, it's only 22% of the voters, personal voters, is voted for Andrew and the JLP. So it means it's probably the most unpopular government in the history of the country. We have never had that so low.
And isn't it weird that it's probably the most unpopular government in the history of the country, but yet they have a landslide in parliament now. So 22% of the people gave them a mandate. So before you go any further, in the chat room, Carolyn wanted to know, other than education, what would be the opposition's plan to curtail the crime?
Well, at other places I have said, crime has to be, the intervention has to be a multifaceted intervention. We have to start from the basic schools with the social intervention, helping the community with the parent, the school, the church, to transform and to address the issues at that level. When you're in a basic school, you can know the child, which is, them say, now learn. You can know the child in the basic school is abused. You know the child who then just shoot them father 2 days ago. You know the child who would come at school, them now have no lunch, them now have no, them clothes no iron. Those are children that needs attention. We can intervene at that level. Then you carry that now through the primary school and continue that intervention using the school, the churches, civil society to support these children. A child not supposed to leave no basic school with not knowing if a child have a learning disorder. Yes? They can't read or they have a problem. We must have proper assessment of these children long before and know exactly how to treat it. So fixing it from that level. The second level is you have to intervene at the adolescent age. We used to have a thing in Jamaica called Reform School. I believe we need to change the name and change the concept and make it a transformational school, a truly transformational school. Whether the church or the army or both, but we have to design a school that when a little boy in a ghetto start on young boy, bad boy, him start smoke weed and the dan take him over and him start hang the gun now. His mother know what go on, the mother don't want that for him, but his mother afraid now. The mother should be able to say to the state, take him into this reform school. Use sports, use music, whatever it is to attract them, to get their attention, to transform them into becoming a man. Because like a boy at 12, 13, 14 really want to become a man. Some of them don't have no father in the home to be a father figure. Some of the uncle, them not there to guide them during that time. You need a man to guide them. You need to use the army and we have great counselors. If you put them in the right environment, they can help these children. So you have to have that approach. And the final intervention has to be in the community level, like what we did in Augustown, where we got everybody to buy into a new vision of the kind of community that we want, and get the youths to be a part of that binding of that vision, and have them be responsible to ensure that the crime is reduced. It has to be a true partnership at that level. And once they trust you and you're doing the right thing, they will come. And then, of course, there's the last case scenario where you just have a bad boy who just a hothead, him is a murderer, and you can't do nothing about him. You have to find the evidence, put him behind bars. So it is no one intervention, it's a multi-intervention from basic school through to primary school, then adolescents, and of course the youths in the community level. We had a thing called Peace Management Initiative, it's scrapped by the government. We're buying more helicopter, we're buying more ship, we're buying more bullet, and we're not doing the social intervention. You know what people, when you know Rattigan, people kill people for foolishness, you know.
Mm.
Man murder man because he says something, I'm here, say I'm a check him girl. Some foolishness, because there's no intervention. There's no community leaders that are so empowered to call them in and say, what is going on? Have this matter resolved. That can be done. We did that in Augustown. I remember in Augustown, we have to call Sizzler or call Zaba and say, look here, them youth over there, so pre them youth over here, so call them in, have a talk with them and tell them, if done that. And once a man call a man will say, you respect the man, they say, all right, boss, we'll allow it. And you get them out of the habit of crime and firing guns. So it's not no one approach, it's a multifaceted approach. We have a psychological problem going on in our heads as a people. We have to start reversing that from basic school. Then we have to work with the guidance counselors. We have to work with the churches. We have to work with the school leadership. We have to get professionals in there to assess and administer proper treatment for these children. We have to work with the adolescent youth, and try to help them to become men and women. Yes? And it has to be that sort of holistic approach, I believe, if we're going to.
But one of the things you just mentioned was people having respect for each other. For example, the Augustown experiment that you just described.
Yes.
They did that out of respect for you, because if they didn't respect you, then they wouldn't give you a hearing, right? So you were able to do that. But we have politicians in Jamaica where they align themselves to a particular side, right? And so they're not respected by the other side. So they're in no position to call both sides where there's an impasse and say, look, we're at loggerheads. Let's try and work these things out.
Yeah.
Now, let me posit something to you. You hear it time and time again that Singapore came to Jamaica in the 60s and they borrowed the Jamaican model and they improved it, they refined it. And they are where they are now as a result of that, as a result of the Jamaican model and their dedication to refining it. And one of the things that they've done about corruption is that they said, look, we're not really interested in prosecuting people at the bottom. We're interested in prosecuting people at the top. And they've given examples of how they've done it, to the point where Singapore is now almost 0% corruption. What are your views on that in Jamaica? Because time and time again, we see where public officials, they've been caught, in some instances, red-handed, and they walk for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
How do we address this as a nation and come to grips with it so that we can eradicate it, not from the bottom, because you will never eradicate it completely if you start from the bottom. If you do it from the bottom, because that's where you'll remain. Because you do it and you remove that person, there are about 3 or 4 people trying to replace that one person. But if you do it up here, it's more visible and the effects are far-reaching. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, we have to have political representatives who are beyond reproach, and that to me is the first thing that we have to start with. And I believe the people of Jamaica are sick and tired of government speaking out of both sides of their mouth. And Joeless, when he was sworn in, said he's going to tackle corruption, and he was big against corruption. Remember, Portia had 2 ministers that resigned when she was prime minister. Fenton Ferguson, because of the dead baby scandal, not corruption. Richard Azan, who breached a procedure to help some vendors in Spalding Market. Those were the only 2 ministers who resigned under Portia Simpson. That's why when people say PMP and JLP is the same, it is not true. Not to say PMP is perfect, but I agree with you. I agree with you that you can't have big people a thief and I get away with it, because the whole society go and say, well, if they can get away with it, me can get away with it too. So we have to target these people, and justice takes too long. We have Royal Reed with a case right now. We heard very little about Petrojam scandal, and there's so much more. We're not hearing enough about it. People are very disillusioned about what is happening in that regard. I want to say one thing about Singapore, though. People talk all the time that Singapore used our business, our model. What they copied was our education model, which was predominantly designed by Norman Manley in the 50s, continued by the JLP administration in the 60s. The next thing is the industrialization policy, which is, bringing in factories and so on and so forth. That was also designed by Norman Manley. But one of the things that we forget to talk about is the raw material that Lee Kuan Yew had to deal with is different from the raw material, and I'm speaking now of human capital. It's a different mentality people Jamaican is from people from China and Malaysia, right? Those Singaporean people are different mental. They never went through slavery and was robbed of their human dignity, their history, their family values, their sense of self. They never went through that. So the raw material that Lee Kuan Yew had is a different raw material. The next thing you have to look at is the interest that the United States and England had in a logistics hub in Singapore at the time and the investment that they brought. Yes, by all means, we're not discrediting Lee Kuan Yew for standing up against corruption, and I agree with that. Jack Smith is the last one who went to prison in Jamaica. Jamaican people are saying, what is going on? It looks like politicians getting away with murder. We have to fix that. And I believe, based on what Mark Golding has said, that he intends to tackle corruption. And he has the pedigree to do so because he's a clean person. We have some clean people in PNP who have lived a decent life and are full of integrity. So yes, we have to do that. And I fully agree with you. Maybe one or two of the politicians at that level need to go to prison, and then Jamaicans will say, yes, something is being done. We can't continue like that.
Okay. Let me turn this discussion in a different direction. You said that the PNP is not a perfect party. No party is. In fact, no person is. Right? But if you could sit down with the leader of the opposition, or better yet, if you could sit down with the Prime Minister, if you had an audience with him, and you could discuss the issues of the day with him, what would those issues be? And I suspect you talked to him about education as well, but I'm trying to get, how would you couch the issue with him? Let's pretend that you're his advisor and you're talking to him about how to, and then I'll ask you the same, think about the question in the same light for Mark Golding. How would you advise him as to say, look, the country is going in the wrong direction, and here you need a course correction, and here's what I think we need to do to get it back to where we should be and beyond? And answer that same question for Mark Golding.
I believe the biggest problem that the Andrew Holness administration is facing is having form but little substance. So they have transformed the business of government or governance in Jamaica into a public relation carnival. So everybody's advertising how well they're doing and how well they're going to be doing and what they are for and how well the government is doing. But when your granny is sick and you go to the hospital and you see the dire situation, when you talk to police men and women in this country to tell you what they go through, you realize that all of this facade, it's not true. On the ground, it is different. So I would tell Andrew Holness to cut the public relation is catching up with you. Because Jamaica is 3 million people, 2.8 million people, is little time, in a very short while the word go around what's happening at Cornwall Regional Hospital, what is happening on the ground with people, the cost of living, what people have to go through. So the PR thing not going to work. I believe he needs to focus on getting things done rather than getting the PR right. So his focus has to change. Mark Golding, if I was to advise Mark Golding, he's not in government. He can do little except in the Department of Legislature. And of course, he can oppose and give ideas. I believe that Mark Golding would be, and I think he's doing this, but better served moving with a team rather than as an individual. Yes, there's a place for the leader, but I believe we really need to strengthen the team. And we have persons in the party with excellent talents that are sitting on the bench. And if we're going to play finals, we can't use a B team. We have to use our A team. And I believe the PNP has the finest talent where political representatives are concerned. Some of them sitting back not doing anything. But that is what I would advise. In a nutshell, that would be my advice.
Okay. Let me turn to something that near and dear and real to all of us, those living at home and those living abroad. The constitutional reform. What is your take, first on the makeup, and second on the effects so far of the committees? I know they've met 6 times already, and there are more meetings planned. But people have been talking about the speed at which they're trying to do this. So comment on that for us, please.
You know, there's a saying that justice must not only be served, but must appear to be served. You must not just transform the Constitution, but you must appear, at least appear, to be consulting with the people and getting a feedback, a genuine feedback from the people. I think they have started on a wrong footing in that regard. They should have had a series of consultation before they start telling you what they're going to do or what not. Even if you know it, we can come back to that because polls indicate, so we know all of that. But you see, perception, this is where the PR now needs to kick in. PR is working back way. The second thing with it, in my, and I'm not a lawyer, so I don't have a problem with the makeup. I have some good minds. But it's important to note in 1995, under PJ Pat's led administration, that we went through the same thing. The stalemate was exactly what it is today. The opposition wanted the upper house and lower house to vote separately and their votes tallied separately to account for that 2/3. This administration, the PNP in 1995, wanted to put the lower and upper house together and amalgamate the votes and count the votes in an amalgamated way. The PNP subsequently, I know PJ Patterson has subsequently said that he had moved away from that position to the position that the JLP had in 1995, which was separate the vote to ensure that you do get a president that both sides agree to. Now we are at the position where the JLP was in 95 and the JLP is where we were in 1995. It's an interesting twist of fate, right? Mm-hmm. But apart, and I agree with the 2/3 separate houses. I agree with the PNP's position on it. What I do think we need to insist, and I said it to our party leader, Mark Golding, that we should insist that the Caribbean Court of Appeal, and we get rid of the Privy Council as we get rid of the King. I don't see what's the point in having this King and then to get rid of the King and then to have the Privy Council as your final court. An ordinary little youth in the ghetto who want to go England go appeal him case, is a cost to go there. And secondly, you need a visa. We have very eminent lawyers in the Caribbean who have proven themselves. And there is nobody can successfully contradict that. Let us use, we believe in ourselves, man. This moving away from the King is really saying, look here, we can manage on our own. Then why we have to go back to him for your final court? No, I believe that both of them need to go under. That's my personal position. I believe the PNP has mooted that position, and I believe that's where it ought to be. We have paid for the court. Mr. Siaga had some concerns about the selection of judges. That was fixed. And therefore, there is no good reason, apart from pomp and pride, that them don't want to carry the CCJ in the mix.
You know, it's my understanding that the CCJ is being used for like disputes concerning commercial transactions, but not for criminal matters. Criminal matters, there's still appeal to the Privy Court. So they use it in limited instances, but you're right.
Which is we're underusing the CCJ.
You're right.
It's foolishness.
You're right. And let me. You say you didn't have any concerns about the makeup of the committee, but I'm looking at the names right now, and there's a gentleman. They just made him ambassador plenipotentiary, Rocky Mead, and he's a co-chair. What does he bring to in your opinion, what does he bring to the committee?
Well, he's a former chief of staff, so I believe where the military is concerned, he would have some input there. I heard something this morning that Grenada didn't have a military. They spend that money in education. The real question, do we really need a military? I don't know. Rocky Mead is a decent guy. I know him fairly well, and he's a good man. I don't have any problems with him. In terms of what he brings to the committee,
Yes.
I can't say.
Because the military
Is
piece.
necessary. I don't think is necessary.
Okay.
And there are other valuable persons out there that we could bring. But Andrew seemed to have a lot of confidence in him, so
And
he
then
likes to have an army man beside him.
what some people are complaining about is that they don't see enough of us. When I say us,
The regular
people like behind me,
the
right?
society.
Right.
and
They
so on.
don't
And I
see
agree.
any of them on it.
And coupled with that, we're not seeing the kind of interaction with the society. The town hall meetings should be every crevice and cranny and around the country. We're not doing enough of that. So not only that, we're not seeing more of the ordinary Jamaicans being represented, or various other groups could be represented. But short of that, we need to be out there talking with the people, educating the people. Some people don't know what Constitution is, much
Yeah.
as knowing their rights.
You're absolutely correct. And there's something that's kind of concerning to me. And it's that when I look at the list, I don't see enough of us, right? But and I spoke with Dr. Nadine Spence, and she's a civil society rep. She's in charge of outreach, and she explained a few weeks ago that they'll be doing a lot of outreach via social media, via town hall meetings, and so on and so forth. I'm wondering, how much of the input will be reflected in the recommendations? I would much rather have somebody sitting on the community. I mean, sitting on the committee, right? As opposed to them just going around and say, "Hey, what do you think? What do you think?" Because at the end of the day, they're going to do a report, and the report is only, and it's important that people get this straight. It's only a recommendation. It's not the Constitution, because the Constitution has to go through, a few more levels before it's final,
Absolutely.
right? So that's that. So I'm looking at this and I'm just kind of concerned. They have a whole bunch of doctors, they have a whole bunch of lawyers. They have one guy from Canada who is a constitutional expert, and people are complaining about him because they're saying, based on his views about certain things, he shouldn't be on it, because they have lots of other people without the controversial piece to it, and so they should be on it. So I'm just curious as to what it's going to look like. And then talk to me about the speed, because they said that the Prime Minister said that he said, "I'm confident that we will be able to meet the ambitious timelines that have been set, and that we will be one step further in redefining who we are as a country and as a sovereign people." Talk to me about that ambitious timeline.
This is a problem that we have with Andrew Holness administration. He's very, very late off the mark, and then is now trying to push this down the throats of the Jamaican people, and that's wrong. He should have started long ago. I remember P.J. Patterson writing an article, wrote a letter to the Prime Minister, says seize the opportunity. That was about 2-3 years ago, and he's just, this is where this is what leadership ought to be. You need to be proactive, understand the issues, or if you don't, get good advisors. But don't wait till last minute and try to push it down people's throats. That is wrong. I don't agree with it. And we're going to end up in problem, because people must trust what you're doing. And if they don't trust it, then we're going to end up in problems.
I
So
think
leadership, lack of good leadership. Well, that's part of our problem in Jamaica. Yeah.
is Mr. the other Hilton, is he around? Tony, I don't I don't see him. Kevin says he's around, but Kevin, if you're
Well,
listening,
you're very blessed this evening, Rattigan. You have Hilton plus Hilton.
well, I'm half blessed. I have one Hilton that I know for sure. The other one I'm still
Okay,
waiting.
okay. What is
Yeah,
my family member and good friend.
yeah,
So
the other one I'm still waiting. Kevin,
decent,
he's not
decent MP,
responding. So yeah.
good guy.
Water issue. Talk to me about that, or talk to us about the water issue. We have not a dam or built in. I don't know how. Where
1948, I believe, was the last major dam, which is Mona. Edward Siaga did a inflow from the Yalas River, which helped, as the Hope River is drying up. Um, but we haven't. One of the things that the Water Commission has cleverly done, though, is start this water lock off, which forced people to put drums on top of their homes. So in essence, you're expanding the dam facility. But we really need a proper dam. And more importantly, I think we can do a lot better in terms of irrigation for farming. I'm so upset about some of these lands that we're using now for housing that should be farmlands. Fidel Castro did tell us, look here, build your house on the hillside, leave the flatlands for farming, so that we can feed ourselves. And that's unfortunate. So it's not just water for homes. We want water for producing our agriculture. And if we don't feed ourselves, I think we are worthless. We need a country that can feed itself. God forbid there's a catastrophe and we're locked off from the rest of the world and no ship can come to Jamaica. We should be able to feed our people. We have a lot of water. There's a 75% of the water is underground, 25% is above ground. We have a lot of water. We need to harness and protect it, but also we need to bring it to the farmers and bring it to homes. Yes, I agree, no question. The time comes. We need another dam. And I'm sure the PMP will look at it. I can't speak on behalf of the PMP in this regard, but certainly I know the culture of the PMP, and these are things that we would definitely be looking at.
But we've waited so long to do anything about water security, to the point now where it's going to
Well,
cost billions and billions of dollars to do.
yeah, but Rattigan, remember, that the fact that we were so riddled with death. When you have 145% of your GDP debt to 145%, it's a lot. Portia Simpson Miller, Peter Phillips, during our reign in the 2011-2016 government, had to take the bull by the horn and pass different legislations, of course being prompted by the IMF, to get us to understand that we can't continue. Now we're at 90% of GDP. Once we go down to say 60, 50% of GDP, we'll have a lot more money to spend on these capital budget. $300 billion, nearly $400 billion is used to pay debt out of the $1 trillion budget. So you have so much debt. If you can imagine, if you had $400 billion to go into infrastructure development plus what we have, it would be great. So those are some of the issues that has helped. And we have done a lot, Rattigan. We have a new road from Negril to Port Antonio. We have Highway 2000. We have North to South Highway. We have the infrastructure being rebuilt, and we brought in the Spanish hotels, and many hotels have built from Negril back to Orcharias. We have done a lot. We have widened the roads. We are doing the South Coast Highway now. We build Emancipation Park. We build the bus park. We build hospitals. We build schools. A lot has done in the last 18 years that PMP was in power. Don't make nobody fool you. Whole heap of things. So we have done. A matter of fact, PJ Pats is known as Mr. Infrastructure, but you couldn't do everything. They say the road to development is the development of roads. And Portia Simpson Miller got the money from China with Omar Davis and Peter Phillips to build a highway to Port Antonio. We designed a 4-lane highway from Harborview to Port Antonio. The Andrew administration has reduced it to 2-lane from Yalas to Port Antonio.
Why?
That's going to hamper. I don't know because they want to use the money for other things, I presume. But that's going to hamper the development of the eastern side of St. Thomas and in Portland. You want a situation where tourists can come off of the airport and in 40 minutes they are in Port Antonio. You have a dual highway, carriageway leading you straight into Port Antonio. Why have we cut it down? Because we don't think the people in Port Antonio deserves it. We don't think the people in St. Thomas deserves it. If we truly want to develop the eastern part of the island, we need to have the road. Dr. Broom, just before he died, demonstrated, saying one thing carpet road, they want the 4-lane highway, want to the amount of money cut off the budget. These are things we need to call out the Andrew Holness administration about.
All right.
We designed a 4-lane highway. They reduced it to 2-lane. Because what? The people don't deserve it? I don't agree. We should open up, we should have 4 lanes to go in there.
You just mentioned tourism, and you just mentioned hotels, and you just mentioned that the PNP government was the government of the day for about, I don't know, 17 years, 16, 17 years. Tell me now, why is it that during that time period, and I still have the question for that question, I can pose it to the present government. But since you mentioned that, you know, the PNP did a whole lot, and I'm not disputing that they didn't. All I'm asking you is, for that period of time, why didn't they make it possible for all Jamaicans to have general access to all beaches in Jamaica?
Well, Michael Manley had declared that the beach is for the people. You know.
No.
The problem that we have is access to the beach. But you can't be taken off the beach as your property. So let us clear that up. When you're on the beach, I don't remember the exact space from where the water breaks. It's a property of the people. So the problem that we have is access to the beach. But you can go on any beach in Jamaica and nobody can legally take you out.
No. There's something called the Prescription Act of 1882, and there's something called the Beach Control Act of 1956, I believe. And based on the Beach Control Act, they can take you off of the beach. That's why you can't go on beaches like sandals. They can put things out there, and you can't walk along the beach.
I don't believe that is legal. From what I remember, I will have to do some further research on it, but from what I remember, once you're on the beach and a certain space from the water to the beach, it's a property of the people.
No. That's in no. I Jabim, the gentleman who's in charge of Jabim, they're fighting that issue right now in court. In Barbados, that's true. In St. Lucia, that's true. In most of the Caribbean, that's true, but not in Jamaica.
Okay,
That's
well, I will do some further research on
right.
that. But let me just say my point. This is my personal opinion, not speaking on behalf of the People's National Party. My personal opinion is that people should have access to the beaches island-wide. It's our country. We worked 400 years, almost 400 years for free for this place. A feel own. You know, see why we should be deprived. You see this whole concept, what is part of the root of this problem is this all-inclusive thing, you know, which I think it is a good model, but I don't know if it is the best model. And I believe we have to look at tempering the amount of all-inclusive that we have in the country. Because the all-inclusive thing is putting the people in a prison on the beach and them can't go nowhere and they can't mingle with the people. We need to educate our people and make sure them can run up and down and talk to tourists and interact with tourists, and tourists can go out like they used to. I remember as a child when I was going to Montego Bay and walk on St. James Street, there was more tourists on the streets of Montego Bay or in Port Antonio. There was more tourists, there were more white people there than black people. Nobody never trouble them. Nobody no trouble tourists. So nobody not troubling tourists. It's a fear tactics that they use about people go and kill them off out the road and that other thing. That don't happen.
No, I understand that, but when you look at a homicide rate at what 47 per 100,000, which is like in the top 3 in the world, including war zones, that sends a clear signal. And then also the way it's advertised. Look at how Sandals advertise. They don't advertise and say come and then go do community tourism. They said come and enjoy the beach and stay right here and everything you need is right here. And people gravitate to that. And so it's
Maybe there's a time and a place for that. And I'm not knocking Sandals' business model, but I'm saying that as we move forward, we have to be conscious of the people. We can't be developing tourism without the people being considered. We can't be passing these laws. That we need to have the people as a center of what we do and stop chatting that we're going to do it, but truly put the people at the center. Or can you lock people out of the beach? A man can't get out of the place to go swim. It don't make sense.
right.
I don't agree with it.
But all right, so let me ask you this. Would you propose that it be included in the next manifesto?
I absolutely would.
Okay.
And a matter of fact, I will bring that to the executive of the People's National Party because it's something that hurts people deeply. And it's something that we should, as a party that is built for the people. That's why it is called People's National Party, you know. Remember our party should be the Jamaica Labour Party because we subscribe to the Labour Party in England. But Norman Manley says, no, we want our own, while we subscribe to the principles and philosophies of the Labour Party. But we need to have our unique name. And that's why it was called the People's Party, because Norman Manley said, it is belonging to the people.
Mm-hmm.
Jamaican people have a song for say, Norman Manley dead and gone, him not left no will, but he left the PMP for all that we.
Mm-hmm.
This is truly the People's Party. So in the soul and the belly of the PMP, that's how we think. It can't be about a privileged few. It has to be about the people and fairness for the people. So if once we have that in our psyche, then the laws that we pass and the policies that we create will have the people as a center.
Here is something that I've taken careful note of. And this goes back to years when I lived in Waterhouse, to this very day. I noticed that there was a certain class of people that were MPs. And what I'm beginning to notice even more today is that that class perpetuates itself not just by a neighborhood, a mindset, money, but now we see families. It's almost like a business where we see a politician grooming his children, where we see a politician grooming his spouse or her spouse or whatever. And then I'm sitting there and I'm going, wait a minute, are you trying to tell me that nobody in a neighborhood like this has the acumen, has the talent, as the skill, raw talent I'm talking about, that you can harness, that you can hone, that you can refine and train them so that they can become leaders in their communities? Why is it that we see leaders coming from up there, so, but we don't see the leaders them coming from down there, so?
Well, I can speak about the People's National Party.
Talk to me about them.
A Damian Crawford came from the bowels of the people. A Portia Simpson Miller came from the bowels of the people. A Dayton Campbell came from the bowels of the people. Andre Hylton came from the bowels of the people. I don't know, you have one or two people who have probably a different high level of education, or their family may have had a high level of education, etc. But it might be an educated class in the case of the PMP, but certainly not a business class.
Mm-hmm.
For now, we have people who are entering politics who are from the roots, from the grassroots of the people. Andre Hylton is from the belly of the people, right? So one time who would ever dream in Jamaica, as you are saying, that a Portia Simpson Miller will become Prime Minister of Jamaica? It's only on a platform of a party like PMP that could happen. Yes? I don't know about the JLP, but I know the PMP embraces the people and understand that the country must feel belonged to by all the people, not just one class, everybody.
Okay. Let me challenge you on that point about the PNP embracing its law or embracing the people. And I'll put it to you like this. In the Constitution, there are 3 instances in which you can have a state of emergency. Insurrection, like what happened at Tivoli. Natural disaster, earthquake, hurricane, and war. War, if we're fighting against a foreign nation.
Yeah.
But we've since 2017, particularly since 2017, it's been used as a law enforcement mechanism. In fact, the government has referred to it as enhanced security measure. Now, it's been used against these people, not the people uptown, these people, right? And it was done with the concurrence of the PNP. The PNP supported it in 2017 for several iterations.
Yes.
And it was only later on, I think when Mark Golding took over in 2020, that he said, no, we're not going to do it. And then there were some court cases, and then they got some legal opinions. But you didn't need a legal opinion at that time. You could simply go to the Constitution and say, look, it's not allowed in the Constitution, and therefore we cannot support it, despite what the optics might be that, oh, we're not fighting crime along with the government. So explain to me, since the PNP is all about embracing the poor man, why is it that they joined forces with the PNP, with the JLP, and unleashed an unconstitutional mechanism against the poor man?
All right, let me just say that the People's National Party, at the time when they voted to extend the states of emergency, it's a time when we had our backs against the wall. The government had no crime plan. And at that time, it was in the early days of their administration, we wanted to see really what they were planning could work. And the popular opinion was, remember the article in the newspaper, the Sunday Gleaner, said 80% of the people wanted state of emergency. So they wanted something. The people were so desperate that we just had to go along and say, well, let's give them a chance. Subsequently, as you know, it is the PNP who took them to court through one of our candidates in Montego Bay, Michael Hemmings, and the court ruled in favor of the people. We fundamental, and I will tell you this, in the People's National Party, we have fought many battles in our executive meeting in NEC because we at the core did not agree with it, but we wanted to give the government a fair chance of trying what they thought that was their current plan. Subsequently, we decided we're not going any further, and we took it to court. And I don't personally believe in it. I don't say I can't speak definitively of it. I know that at the core of the party that we don't agree with it because it's taking away the rights of the people. You can lock up a little youth. And I've known many youths in St. James, many youths in Eastern St. Andrew, many youths all over the country who are just locked up because they were at a corner, they were talking to the wrong person, or they were leaving church, or they going to the shop. And what we do is make enemies of these youths. So yes, fundamentally, we are for the people, and that has never changed. But we really were trying at the time to see if we could give the government some latitude, since they say they had no crime plan, and that seemed to have been their crime plan. That's why I read it. And I see my friend Tony Hylton, my cousin and brother, on, so you know that once you have Tony Hylton, you don't need Tony Hylton and his worries.
We only have 9 minutes left, so I guess we'll just... Mr. Hylton, Tony, that is. Sir.
Yes, I'm listening in.
Yeah. Welcome. We only have a short period of time, so we're going to have you on again. But before we go for the day, I would just like you to give us an update on the Constitutional Committee's work on the constitutional reform, please.
Yeah, well, just to say that the committee's work has just started. One of the complaints, both within the committee and outside, is that inside the committee, there's been a strong push to get the public education going. In fact, the only subcommittee that has been formed to date has been the subcommittee on external and public education. So that has been the effort. It is true that the government has been slow in putting some things in place. But it is not true to say that it was the intention of the committee. No, I, I, I would like to believe the government was not of that view. I can't speak for the government. I can speak for the, the, the members of the committee. Because in those meetings, there have been a singular push to get the public education and outreach going. That it has not happened in the way that is expected and the people are demanding, it is not because there's been some conspiracy between government and opposition and the other members of the group, remembering that the committee is comprised of members other than the government and the opposition. But it has started slowly, but I believe that will get going and get going in a very real way.
No,
That is our hope and expectation.
let me ask you this. Tremendous task as this is, in terms of dealing with the Constitution, removing parts of it, replacing parts of it. This is a monumental task. This is a task that affects every aspect of Jamaican life. And I dare say it also impacts people living, Jamaicans living abroad,
Right.
for a variety of reasons.
Right.
How could it be then that, because you'd think if you're going to take on this task, you would have your pre-planning done. And I'm not making this accusation at you. I'm just saying in general, because like I said, you don't speak for the government. But how could this be that you're taking on this monumental task that requires so many moving parts, so many things, and then you come up willy-nilly, well, I shouldn't say willy-nilly, but you come up with these things and you say, okay, we're going to get it done. And then you display inefficiency in terms of getting things off the ground. And then the Prime Minister says things like, I am confident that we will be able to meet the ambitious timelines that have been set. How do you square those two, where you're saying you're going to meet deadlines, but you haven't made the plans, you haven't done the homework, you haven't done the groundwork to sync up the plans with the timeline?
Yeah. Well, firstly, again, this is the timing of the committee is the choosing of the administration of the day. The opposition accepting that the issue of constitutional reform is one that the PNP administration has been pushing for decades. Michael Manley led those arguments, and we continue to believe that the constitutional amendment is necessary. However, as I said, the government chose the timing and the platform. As I've said before, there's been some disappointment about the rollout of public engagement on it. If the government has set a timeline, it is the government's timeline. We have, from the very beginning, not just the opposition, but other members of the committee have indicated that this timeline is too ambitious a timeline. The government strategy has been around narrowing the focus of the reform and to put them in phases. They have indicated 3 phases. Part of the challenge we have as opposition, and we've indicated that, is that in the phasing, the government is looking at, as it's called, Jamaicanizing the Constitution. And in that, what it means by that is simply to have the process of removing the head of state done. And then it says in other phases, it look at a range of other issues. Our argument has been, no, we're not only Jamaicanizing, we are decolonizing the process. And if we're decolonizing the process, then you have to look at critical infrastructure like the courts. And the court has to be a part of the decolonizing effort. Otherwise, it makes a mockery of the process that you would have removed the head of state, you would have made some other changes. But if the next day, having removed the head of state, you were to have a constitutional challenge,
and it goes right up through to the final court, which is the Privy Council, then you have to petition the same king that you've just removed as head of state. So we have said no, the process that would not be satisfactory to us. We have made clear that even if you're talking about a minimal process of Jamaicanizing or decolonizing, it must include the court as a critical part of decision making. So there has been these discussions, and as I said, the consultation with the people and the need for that is real. We have said that from the beginning, and we are insistent on that. If the government wants to go ahead and table a bill, and it doesn't have the support of the opposition, then that bill is not going anywhere.
Well, we only have like a minute and a half left. So let me ask you this. Considering the issues that you just raised, decolonizing versus Jamaicanizing and the civil, the Privy Council and the other bodies, will we reach consensus on this within the ambitious timetable?
Well, this is my point. The first of all, to say that the timetable indicated by the government is to complete what they call phase one, which are these what deeply entrenched or protected provisions in the Constitution. The Constitution has various layers of protection, from simple to entrenched to deeply entrenched. The government seems to be focusing on just one element of it, which is a deeply entrenched provision.
All right, listen.
There's some logic to it, but that logic has to be functional.
Listen, I'll tell you what, this makes for an interesting discussion, and we're out of time, so we're going to have you back because this is a continuing issue, and we want to stay on top of it. So I want to thank you for coming in. Sorry for the delay. And I also want to thank your cousin, your brother. Yes, Andre Hylton. So I look forward to seeing you soon, and I'll be in touch.
Yeah.
All right, take care now.
We are good friends.
Okay, take care now. All right, bye-bye.
All right, Rattigan. Well, this was good. Thank you.
All right, my brother. We'll talk soon.
Pleasure.
All right, bye-bye. All right.
Honesty, can you say honesty? Honesty, can you say honesty? Honesty, can you say honesty? Honesty.